We, all of us, know when our body, our mind, and our spirit are in alignment, because we're present, we have focus and attention. But how do we know when those three have merged to bring a state of Sat Chit Ananda, or existence, knowledge, and bliss? In the first days together with the stories, perhaps it was clear that one of the ways we know that we're in this state is that there's an absence of dialogue in our minds. No should we's, what ifs, and so forth. And perhaps it was also gleaned that a second way we know is that there is action, but there is no reaction in our relationship with life. So let's see on this last evening together what these simple anecdotes can bring for us. Mullah Nasruddin was walking down the road when he encountered a monk coming the other way. And they greeted one another amicably, and since it was high noon and the sun was hot, they sat down under a tree and began to discuss spiritual matters. But then the monk said to Mullah Nasruddin, "You know, I'm so selfless, I only think of others. I never think of myself." Mullah Nasruddin said, "Oh, well, I'm so selfless that I am everyone, so I can afford to think of myself." And then there was a certain abbess, a very famous abbess of a monastery. People came from all over to seek her wise counsel, and she told a story sometimes. She said, "You know, there was a man, and he was swimming in the ocean, but he didn't know which direction and where to go. But then someone said to him, 'If you go north, you will find a resting place.' So he swam as hard as he could go to the north, but he didn't find any resting place. And then someone said to him, 'Why don't you go to the east?' So he swam to the east, but still he didn't find a resting place. And then someone said, 'Go to the south.' And he swam south, and he's getting very, very weary and tired, and he didn't find a resting place. So they said, 'Go to the west,' and he tried, no. And he was so tired, he was almost drowning, when a woman laughed at him and said, 'You silly fellow, it's right here. Just roll over on your back and float.' And then one day, a Buddhist monk came to this abbess, and he said, 'You know, all my life I've been making stories. And when I got tired of any stories, I just make up another story. And my latest story was that I've been a Buddhist monk for the last 30 years. But I'm tired of this story, and now I don't know who I am. So the abbess scolded him and said, well, now it's time for you to listen to the stories of others. Then there was a Zen monk called Sakito. And Sakito lived in a state of samadhi. He lived in a state of Sat Chit Ananda. But he didn't stand any nonsense. He only knew truth. And he was very harsh to his disciples. He would beat them, slap them. And sometimes, if they tried to run away, he would chase after them and grab them and say, where are you going? And they'd say, I'm just so tired. He said, come back. And he'd drag them back and slap them. And then there was even a time when he threw one fellow out of the window and jumped out after him, landed on his chest. Beat him. He said, you got it! And even with his broken bones, the disciple said, yeah, I got it. He was enlightened. This was Sakito. He couldn't help himself, but he was getting very, very old. And his disciple would say to Master, you're very old. You should stop slapping people. And he'd say, yes. Sometimes I go to bed and my hand is sore all night. So his disciple said, why don't you stop slapping people then? Sakito said, even when I die and I'm in my grave, if I see someone in pain, if I see someone in need, I'll get up and slap them. When we hear these 4 very simple anecdotes in endeavoring to answer this question, how do we know when we're in a state of Sat Chit Ananda or existence, knowledge and bliss? What arises for you out of these anecdotes? What's your experience that enables you to recognize in these simple stories some qualities that are now present in your life? What are they? What do these anecdotes tell us about ourselves now, to give us confirmation? Yes. Not only am I in alignment, not only is my body, my mind and my spirit present, aligned, focused, alert, but these other qualities are present. An absence of doubt, an absence of reaction. What else? What is it that these simple anecdotes confirm for you? Mula. I am so selfless. I am everyone. So I can afford to think of myself. Recognizing that we're no longer swimming, so we're constantly tired, not knowing where we're going, and even when we arrive somewhere finding that it's not a resting place. Haven't we rolled over on our back and going with the flow? And what about the monk? So many stories we've made. And now we can't make any more stories. What remains for us when there's no more stories in our life? What's present in this state when we're aligned and present? Listening. Listening. And what about the old monk Sikito? Can you be bothered with idle chatter anymore? Can you be bothered with people talking nonsense or not the truth or being real? Do you have time for it? In a state of Sat Chit Ananda, you don't. You don't have time for that nonsense. You may not say it in so many words, but everyone you meet, you say, get real! Get real! Because you can't be fooled anymore. You can tell when their mouth and their heart are not jibing. So what are these confirmations that we're in that state? Recognize them in yourself, and there it is for you. Thank you.